Hello, I'm Dr. Pete McCluskey and I'm your module leader for Enterprise and the Future of Work. And I just wanted to spend some time in this short video talking about Sustainable Development Goals and wicked problems. So this is an image that you might be familiar with. Represents the 17 Sustainable Development Goals as established by and managed by United Nations and partners. And you can see that the 17 blocks refer to particular themes and particular areas. Number 1 is no poverty. Number 2, zero hunger. Number 8, which is relevant to us, and I'll come back to that in a moment, is decent work and economic growth. But what's the background to the Sustainable Development Goals? Well, if you go to the SDGs website, you can find a lot of information about the background and the history to the SDGs. You can see that it's very much related to the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, which you may be familiar with. But this was adopted by the United Nations member states in 2015 and provides a shared blueprint for peace and prosperity for people on the planet now and into the future. And at the heart of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development are these 17 Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs, as you'll come to know. They're an urgent call for action by all countries, developed and developing, in a global partnership. Another way of thinking about the SDGs in the context of a shared blueprint for peace and prosperity for people and the planet now and into the future. And you can find that quote on the SDGs website. I'd like to take issue with this because in some ways it's not a shared blueprint. It's a set of goals, a set of aspirations, but the way in which we're going to get there is not clear. And that's because the problem of hunger, for example, the problem of clean water for everybody, the problem of decent work are complex problems and not easy to achieve. And therefore this blueprint is not necessarily a roadmap to getting there, it's simply a set of aspirations, and it's down to us, down to you, down to governments to find ways to achieve these goals. Amongst the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, you can find number 8, which is very relevant for our module Enterprise and the Future of Work. And this goal is about promoting sustained, inclusive and sustainable economic growth, full and productive employment and decent work for all. And buried within that goal, there are certain targets as well. So for example, one of the targets is to achieve higher levels of economic productivity through diversification, technological upgrading and innovation, including through a focus on higher value added and labour intensive sectors. Now with that one target, you can already see that there's a challenge, maybe an ethical challenge. On the one hand, introducing high value added technologies like AI is going to impact on labour intensive sectors. And we've already established through some of our discussions that there's an ethical dimension to this, in that technology may displace jobs. So this is a complex challenge. It's not a simple case of introducing something and solving a problem. Introducing one solution may lead to other problems elsewhere. This leads on to another concept, the notion of wicked problems. Wicked problems is defined by Horst Rittel in an article called Dilemmas in a General Theory of Planning. And he described wicked problems as a class of social system problems which are ill-formulated, where information is confusing, where there are many clients and decision makers with conflicting values, and where the ramifications in the whole system are thoroughly confusing. These are difficult, complex problems where there's not necessarily ever a solution. You get closer to a solution, where the problem and the origin of the problem is not really well known, and where you have to persuade or work with lots of different stakeholders who maybe have different agendas and different value systems. Perhaps a classic wicked problem was COVID-19. One of the solutions, or one of the ways of dealing with it, actually goes back to September 2020, where the government thought that it might be a good idea to get people back into pubs, back into restaurants. However, they also introduced a curfew so that people wouldn't get too drunk in the pubs. They wouldn't stay all night and start getting too close. So they decided that people would have to be kicked out of the pubs at 10 o'clock in the evening. However, this led to another problem because everybody then spilled out into the streets at 10 o'clock at night and meant social mixing. So in order to try and solve one problem, it created a similar problem of the same nature. And that is the nature of wicked problems. Again, the United Nations and the authors of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals recognize the complexities of these goals, recognize that they're interconnected, and recognise that while they may be represented as 17 discrete goals, they are far from it. So if you look at our goal, goal 18, you can see that they've represented it as related to 3 other goals. Goal 1, which is end poverty in all its forms elsewhere. So of course, yes, if you want to produce decent work for all, you will, by definition, lead to the ending of poverty. And again, if you want to end poverty, that in itself might lead to decent work for all. Again, goal 8 is related to goal 10 and 12. So the point here really is that we cannot think of these goals in isolation. We need to think of them as related to other challenges and other stakeholders. So I would really encourage you to check out the SDGs and check out our goal particular, goal 8, and look at what work has already been done to achieve or to meet these wicked problems. And I'd certainly encourage you to read up a little bit more around wicked problems and what they are and how they're dealt with. Because if we are in the business of addressing these challenges, then we need to know a little bit more about wicked problems. We need to know a little bit more about the SDGs and how they've been tackled so far. But thank you for watching.